Laura, should we do that old thing of which character from Friends are you, but do it with Chris Mason, who's still never seen a single episode?
Well, still. Well, I suppose it has been quite busy in the last few years.
Yeah. Have I missed this new one as well? Has that been and gone already?
You would not have a clue who any of the people are or what they're talking about.
No.
Has it been on there? It was on today,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's streaming, so it's on all the time.
Yes. Right. That's a newfangled. All the kids are doing things that way.
Didn't exist when Friends first existed in 1996.
No. But Chris, you still haven't watched any of it?
No, it is on my sort of to-do list of things to watch. The thing is, my wife saw it when everybody else saw it, and so, when am I going to sit down and actually watch it? And the children are too young, so no, I haven't. Maybe I just watch this new one and that's it. I'll be caught up, won't I, in one go?
Well, luckily, us political geeks had the one with Dominic Cummings this week, which was a special 7-hour-long reunion episode with many fewer laughs.
And there weren't many friends in that.
Boom! This is like a sitcom, like with a team of top writers. Not really. Anyway, welcome to Newscast.
Newscast from the BBC.
Hello, it's Adam in the studio.
And we're in the same studio, still 2 metres apart, looking increasingly like we'll still be 2 metres apart after the end of June, but let's see.
And Chris bunking down in the sanitised broom cupboard of news until goodness knows when.
And thank you to everyone who listened to the previous episode of Newscast, where Laura and I rattled through at breakneck speed the 7 hours of Dominic Cummings' evidence about how the government handled the pandemic at various points. And I have to say, my head is still spinning a little bit from all the names and the dates and the claims and the meetings and the plans and the allegations and everything. And I think it'll probably be by the end of the weekend before I sort of reach a settled kind of view about what I think about it all.
News fest is how I would define it. But also, I think actually for loads of people watching, not just the 7 hours, but for people who will have seen the front pages this morning, people have heard the odd snippet when they're listening to the radio, people who watched the telly news last night, or, were looking at the headlines on their phone. Whatever else it did, it made a lot of things come roaring back. And I'm afraid for a lot of people, if they've lost loved ones or were very affected by COVID for all sorts of different reasons, it really might have reopened some old wounds, not beyond any of the politics of it. And let's just not think about that for a second. It was a real kind of, wow. Strip out the hyperbole, strip out the politics. Goodness me, this country has been through something unreal in the last year.
And a tiny little sense, you two, I've been off for the last couple of days with a spectacular bit of diary management.
Well done. Not watching Friends, though?
No, didn't make time for Friends and didn't catch... And so, and didn't spend all 7 hours watching Dominic Cummings. But the bits that I caught, I was thinking, my goodness, you get in a tiny little burst, albeit packed into 7 hours, an insight into what the inquiry in the end will look and sound like, as we hear so many competing testimonies from deep inside government about what was happening, as you say, in that period that rakes up for so many people all sorts of horrible memories.
Well, that's right. And you wonder actually in 2021 or whenever the inquiry starts in 2023, that's a very different prospect, holding an inquiry, than compared to when Chilcot started after all sorts of things had happened behind closed doors. I mean, the government is attacked often for not being transparent enough. But my goodness me, governments now generally are much more transparent, whether they like it or not, than things were, 10, 20, 30 years ago. So actually so much will be already out there by the time they get around to an inquiry.
Well,
anyway.
and what's been happening today in day two is that people who were mentioned have been reacting to it. And so we'll get the reactions in a second. But first of all, here's one of the jaw-dropping bits where Dominic Cummings was talking about the Prime Minister.
Fundamentally, I regarded him as unfit for the job, and I was trying to create a structure around him to try and stop what I thought were extremely bad decisions and push other things through against his wishes. And he had the view that he was Prime Minister and I should just be doing as he wanted me to, and that's obviously not sustainable for very long. The truth is that senior ministers, senior officials, senior advisors like me fell disastrously short of the standards that the public has a right to expect of its government in a crisis like this. When the public needed us most, the government failed.
So some of that was put to Boris Johnson today when he was getting on with the job, as he would say it, by visiting a hospital.
Some of the commentary I've heard doesn't bear any relation to reality, and what people want us to get on with is delivering the roadmap and trying cautiously to take our country forward.
They're just basically not engaging with it, are they, the government?
Not really, not engaging with any of the specifics. The Prime Minister just doesn't really want to go there. They've said, there'll be a public inquiry, there'll be time for all of that, blah, blah, blah. But it's like they don't want to dignify the specific claims with detailed answers. But it doesn't just mean they can stick their fingers in their ears and it all goes away. And particularly for Matt Hancock, the problems are, there are a lot of things to answer. Let's have a listen to what Cummings said.
I think that the Secretary of State for Health should have been fired for at least 15, 20 things, including lying to everybody in multiple occasions, in meeting after meeting in the Cabinet room and publicly.
Ouch, I mean, blimey. Even hearing that again for the umpteenth time, it is extraordinary, really extraordinary, isn't it? Not a passing glance, absolutely direct. So we had Matt Hancock, didn't we, doing the running away thing outside his house yesterday, and then a few words when he came back.
Do you mean vigorously going for a jog in front of the assembled press photographers outside his house?
That was it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And sort of, sprinting down the street and then doing a lap of the block and coming back.
And then he appeared in Parliament.
Possibly. And then he appeared in Parliament, and then he's been at a news conference as well, doing a bit of defending.
Yes, and the bit we're going to play of that news conference is a very specific bit, because one of those 15 to 20 things that Dominic Cummings accused him of doing was having promised in the cabinet room to senior people in the government that people leaving hospitals and going into care homes right at the start of the pandemic in March were being tested for COVID. Dominic Cummings said that didn't happen. We actually know it didn't happen straight away.
We know it didn't happen,
yes.
What we don't know is whether or not Matt Hancock actually made that promise.
But what we do have is Matt Hancock going on the record with this very, very carefully phrased answer. Have a listen. And it's the first sentence here, I think, is the key thing.
Of course, we committed, and I committed, to getting the policy in place, but it took time to build the testing. We didn't start with a big testing system in the UK, and then we built that testing system. And that's why the 100,000 target was so important, because it really accelerated the availability of testing.
I committed to delivering that policy. Now, you could hear that multiple ways, couldn't you?
Anyone would imagine he might be a politician.
Yeah.
You could. You could hear them as saying, well, I'm not denying that I made that promise. Or you could hear him saying, of course I didn't make that promise, because that would have been ridiculous to make, because at that point we all knew there weren't enough tests. Or he could have been saying, or he could have meant, I did mean that promise, but what people should have obviously understood I meant was
it wasn't happening today.
There weren't enough tests, so of course we were going to try and build it up as quickly as possible. But, in that classic political way. And today we had one of those press conferences where Downing Street was getting handy with the mute button. Yeah. So actually lots of us tried to ask that question and then to clarify when he didn't quite ask it. So he didn't quite deny it, but he didn't quite...
Oh, I think I heard you getting cut off, actually. I wondered if
it's a classic. Yeah. Well, anyway, there we are.
Let's not go there.
Let's not go there. But yeah,
that rhetoric had gone, though, hadn't it, Laura? I noticed you tweeting about this. That rhetoric that we heard over and over again from Mr. Hancock, and I think from others as well, about a shield being thrown around nursing homes, care homes. And
from the start.
Yeah, and that, exactly. And that, well, he could have said it, and he didn't say it. And it's not just important to look at the precise nature of what he did say, but also what he chose not to.
Yes, and that was actually my question to him was, can you stand there today and say it's still true that the government protected care homes from the start? And he didn't stand there today and say that. So I suspect that claim, which we have heard again and again and again and again, has now been retired. Because frankly,
if you pardon the pun,
families know it's not true, right?
Yeah,
care home managers know it's not true. Lots of MPs know it's not true. We were on this programme, our newscasters know it's not. People were getting in touch with us to say things are going wrong in care homes. Now, that doesn't mean it wasn't difficult. It doesn't mean that the government wasn't trying to do their best. But I think, in fact, Dominic Cummings' accusation about Hancock and that phrase was, I think he said it was ridiculous, or did he say it was nonsense?
Nonsense, I think, yeah.
You know, so it's not that surprising that the Health Secretary has let that phrase go out to pasture. But I think there are still tricky things for him. I don't think this is all unwound yet, although at the end of that 7 hours of testimony yesterday, there wasn't one huge... should we say, Dom bomb, as some of the headline front pages said, that was a sudden, giant, oh my goodness, this completely upsets the apple cart. shocking as a lot of it will have been for many, many people.
Well, somebody who knows exactly what it is like making those decisions in those rooms about how to battle the pandemic in a part of the UK is our celebrity guest on Newscast tonight. It is the outgoing First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster. Hello, Arlene.
Hi, it's the first time I've been called a celebrity guest, but there you go. Maybe that's because I'm leaving office soon. I'm getting a new moniker.
Yeah, so it's your first time on as First Minister, but also probably your last time on as First Minister, but hopefully not your last time ever on.
Yeah, I would think it's my last time on as First Minister,
There you go.
And it's an excuse for me to tell my trademark Arlene Foster story about when I first met you at Tory Party conference and one of your super fans ran up and said, "I can't believe I'm meeting Arlene Phillips in the flesh. It's so exciting."
Well, there aren't too many Arlenes in public life. So, I used to love watching Arlene Phillips and Strictly Come Dancing. So I'm quite a fan of Arlene Phillips myself. So I didn't actually mind him saying that to me.
Oh, we should have got her on as well. That would have been great.
Yeah.
That would have been podcasting gold.
There we go. One for an idea for the future.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Get all the Arlenes in one room. It was a bit like Nigel Dodds told me there used to be a gathering of Nigels, so we could have a gathering of Arlenes. That'd be
I
good.
love that. Who went to that? Did you have Nigel Dodds?
Well, I think Nigel's
Lawson.
Nigel's not really a name that's used very much now by new mums and dads. So I think they were trying to say that Nigels were dying out. I haven't met too many Arlenes who have been born recently either, so that's probably the same for it.
Nigel Mansell could stay off the drink and do the drive home.
And one last joke. Obviously, the number of Arlenes would be the R number. Anyway, right. Before we find out about your reflections on your time as First Minister, and I'm sure there's loads of fascinating stuff you can tell us, what did you think about the whole Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings COVID kind of drama that was happening at Westminster this week?
Well, I'm not surprised you to know I didn't exactly have 7 hours to sit and watch the whole drama, but I can't say I'm particularly surprised of Dominic wanting to get it all off his chest, and he certainly did all of that.
Tell us and tell our newscasters beyond Northern Ireland why you're standing down and why particularly standing down now.
Well, I'm standing down now in the middle of a COVID crisis because my party colleagues decided that it was time to have a new leader. And once that is made clear to you through the media, I don't think there's any option but to stand down and allow a new leader to be elected. So that's what is happening tonight. There's a ratification of the new leader taking place in a hotel in Belfast, so that will happen. I will leave the leadership tomorrow, and then shortly after that, depending on what the new leader wants, I will move out of First Minister as well.
How painful a process is that, learning, as you say, through the media that your own party that you've served want rid of you?
Well, it's not particularly pleasant. I think I said a couple of days after what had happened that politics is brutal, but even by DUP standards, it was pretty brutal in terms of what happened. I had absolutely no idea and was telephoned by a close colleague that this was happening on Monday evening, and then by Tuesday morning, it was all in the papers, so it wasn't particularly pleasant. There was, of course, another way of doing it, but colleagues decided to go down a different route.
And Arlene, do you think it's different and more difficult for women in public life? So I know when you gave your statement, you said some quite spiky things actually about how women in public life are treated differently. There's been a court case as well about something that happened to you on social media that, you can talk to us about if you wish, but I know obviously there's some legal implications there too. But as someone who's been involved in, tough frontline politics, I don't think anybody would accuse you of being a wallflower or being soft or not being able to take criticism. But how do you feel about the differences between the treatment of men in politics and women in politics that persist to this day?
Well, there's no doubt there's a difference made between women in generally in public life. I'll say that not just in politics, but in your own profession and indeed in the world of business. Women are treated differently than men. There's no doubt about that. We're judged on our hairstyles, our weight, our clothes, what we say. So if Michelle and I, the Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland, have a political dispute, it is categorised as shrill and possibly even a cat fight. Whereas if men are having a political disagreement. It's a strong disagreement on principle, and we are described as emotional, men are described as passionate. So I've seen all of the differences throughout my time as a woman in politics. And I think one of the reasons that I got involved in politics as a young woman back in the 80s is that actually from 1979 to 1990, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was a woman. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing strange about women stepping forward and getting involved in politics. And some of the correspondence that I've received from young women and older women since I've announced that I'm stepping down has been really encouraging, because they've said to me, we hadn't realised how important it was to have a female leader until you were leaving, but now we realise it was really important to us, and it was an encouragement to us, and it's the well-trodden line, you cannot be what you cannot see. And I hope if we've achieved the fact that young women want to get involved in politics in Northern Ireland, then that is, to me, a good legacy. And I have dedicated my life to trying to make Northern Ireland a better place. And just because I'm leaving frontline local politics, I will continue to be an advocate for Northern Ireland, because I passionately believe in the place.
Oh, how will you do that?
Well, you don't have to be elected to be an advocate, and I intend to advocate in relation to those who are in need. I want to do some work about social media, if I'm honest, because you've referenced the case today. I mean, turns out actually you can't say what you like on Twitter and get away with it.
And the case today is that you won a libel action against a TV celebrity who'd said something about your private life, and you got quite a big payout as a result.
The government is trying to do something about this now in what was called the Online Harms Bill, and then Adam's paying more attention than I have, and it's now called the Online Safety Bill. They've changed the name. But when you look at that legislation, when you look at those proposed new laws, do you think that they actually do enough? I mean, you referenced the kind of abuse that you had got as a woman in public life. Does the bill go far enough? Because it's a hard balance to strike.
It is a hard balance to strike. And as someone who believes in the freedom of speech, and I do passionately believe in that, and I think it's important that that is defended. What I worry about is when people who act on Twitter as if it's the Wild West, and that they can say whatever they like, and then others join in and pile in to cause maximum harm and maximum damage. I think it's important that is called out. And so the anonymity piece has to be challenged. I think I'm not suggesting that people have to put up the true names if there's a reason why they don't want to do that. But somebody needs to know who owns the Twitter account and be held accountable if they decide to tweet harmful and abusive and frankly libelous comments. So that's the route I want to try and continue with. I welcome the fact that the government have identified that there is a real issue here. I haven't, for obvious reasons, had time to study the new legislation and get in behind that, but I will. One of the things I am hugely concerned about is visiting schools around Northern Ireland. It's one of the things I love doing most as First Minister, is visiting schools and engaging with young people, is how widespread the abuse and bullying is on social media towards young people. I mean, young people are self-harming because they cannot escape Twitter, social media. I always reflect on the fact that when I came home from school, I didn't see my friends the next day. The telephone was down the hall. It rarely rang. If it did ring, your father or mother came to see who was on the phone. When young people today,
I remember that dreaded noise of the other receiver being picked up,
and told, "Don't be on it too long. Your granny's ringing." But I think that nowadays, and I see this right across the young people that I engage with, there is no escape. They're walking around with it all the time, and it's pinging, and the abuse is there. And I think that needs to be not only called out but dealt with in a meaningful way.
But just to be clear on the policy solution, then, it would be to introduce something into this online safety bill that isn't there at the moment in the draft legislation, which would basically encourage social media companies to make you sign up with your real name and your picture rather than LK17313041119 #.
Who could that be?
Yeah.
So don't use my initials to imply
Sorry,
that
I was looking at you.
Serial and anonymous abuse.
BKL11134 #. Yeah, Arlene, that's basically what you're saying.
Somebody. I am saying that because someone needs to know who owns the account Then if there is abuse coming from that account, people can be challenged around it. I think that's really, really important.
First Minister, let's talk about Brexit, all sorts of little details we might want to get into here, as you might imagine. But first of all, let's play a little clip. Have a listen to this. You may just be familiar with this.
I now want to introduce a man who is not only a good friend to me, he is a fabulous friend to the union and a promoter of the union. And therefore, I want to introduce the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain.
Listeners to the podcast will not be able to see Arlene Foster smiling and then laughing at the end of that. Why ever is that your reaction?
Because it's played quite a bit. Obviously that's from the Conservative Party conference in 2019, before the Prime Minister decided to go down the route of what is now the Northern Ireland Protocol, which has been causing grave damage to Northern Ireland in terms of the economy and the fact that we now receive parcels from Great Britain with customs declarations on them, the fact that our medicines supply from Great Britain, if it's not dealt with very soon, will be under threat at the end of the year. The fact that there is VAT on second-hand cars moving from Great Britain into Northern Ireland, the fact that soy can't be brought over from Great Britain into Northern Ireland in pot plants. The Prime Minister was warned about this in so many ways and repeatedly by my colleagues in the House of Commons before he decided to proceed with this. As you know, we voted on the programme motion that brought an end to the then government. There was then the Westminster election. Boris's big thing was to get Brexit done, and I can understand why people rallied to that. But unfortunately for us here in Northern Ireland, Brexit hasn't been done, and that's the problem.
With hindsight, were you naive to believe him?
No, I don't think I was naive to believe him, but I think some people asked me the question, and no doubt we're going there next, would it not have been better to do a deal on Theresa May's backstop? Well, actually, the backstop was even worse than what we have now, because, of course, that kept us in the single market forever. You'll remember the Attorney General at the time, Geoffrey Cox's famous opinion that we were locked in forever and a day. So whilst this is dreadful, I think the government have now recognised through the personage of Lord Frost that things have to change. I had an engagement with the Prime Minister last Thursday, again reminding that he needed to deal with this issue and deal with it quickly, because it is
what have they promised to actually do with the protocol?
Ongoing harm. Well, I mean, it is an ongoing issue. As you know, Ursula von der Leyen made some comments this week that she wasn't going to change the protocol, it just had to be implemented properly. That's a totally tin ear to the genuine concerns of the people of Northern Ireland. And if we're going to ignore that, I mean, the two issues we were told the protocol were there to protect was the single market of the European Union and the Belfast Agreement. So it is not protecting the Belfast Agreement because the East-West relationship has been damaged by the protocol. And if you know anything about Northern Ireland politics, when you tinker with one part of the Belfast Agreement, it has a knock-on impact on all the rest of the Belfast Agreement.
And it's been
I am really quite concerned about that moving into the summer months, if I'm honest.
And it's been certainly a very torrid debate about all of this for a long time, and no doubt will continue to be beyond your time in office. But beyond the
I look forward to coming on your programme and not talking about Brexit. But in any event,
see you in 12 years' time.
With us.
But in a sort of general sense, I mean, beyond the specifics and all of these tensions, in a general sense, I mean, when you look back at what must have felt like a real roller coaster, there's just two things that I want to ask you. I mean, one, can you think of what your sort of best moment was and what the hardest moment was? And also, newscasters who used to be Brexit casters will remember, or people who followed the news, that there was this summit where Theresa May, she thought she'd got a deal. And then apparently there was this phone call, ring, 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 from Arlene Foster during the lunch between her and Jean-Claude Juncker. And she had to sort of disappear during the foie gras or whatever they were having in the Parlement in Brussels. What did you say on the phone?
Well, look, I mean, in terms of the best moment, I think it was after the The election in 2017, when we held the balance of power, and of course had the phone call in the middle of the night from Theresa May around working together to try and form a government. The fact that we were able to bring...
So what did she... I'm curious as to what she might have said. Was it basically help?
No, well, she said that she wanted to speak with me, and the fact that we had 10 members of parliament and we were unionists and we were right of centre in terms of our political outlook, that we needed to work. And of course, we believed in Brexit, that we should work together in trying to form the government. And, we wanted to help, and they wanted to make sure that they could form that government. So that's how the confidence and supply agreement came about in 2017.
Mm-hmm. And the worst?
And then, and they...
Maybe it was that too.
Well, no, it wasn't, because we were able to... people said to us at the time, what are you going to ask for? Are you going to ask for a cabinet position? Are you going to look for something for the DUP as a party? We actually brought £1 billion extra in terms of spending to Northern Ireland, which I think was absolutely the right thing to do, because it meant that everybody in Northern Ireland benefited.
And that was the deal, was it? As overtly as that?
That was the deal. That was the deal in terms of mental health provision, in terms of better infrastructure, particularly in relation to broadband. And at this very moment, full fibre broadband has been rolled out right across Northern Ireland, including some of our very rural areas. So that will stand us in good stead in the future. So whilst people can look at those 2 years and say, oh my goodness, it must have been terrible for you, when I look back in 10 years, Northern Ireland will have the best broadband infrastructure anywhere in the United Kingdom, and I think that's quite something.
All courtesy of a hung parliament.
All courtesy of a hung parliament, and that's what it's all about in terms of politics and delivering for your people.
And that phone call with Theresa May, would you divulge that now, or do you want to come back another time after you're out of office and tell us exactly what really happened?
Well, we were just shocked at the content of what had been agreed. I had a meeting with my colleagues, and we decided that I needed to let her know that we were very unhappy with the content of it, and that's what I did.
Directly?
And that's
Very
it.
directly?
Directly. I spoke to the Prime Minister, yes, indeed.
Thank you for coming on, First Minister. We really appreciate your time. What's the first thing you're looking forward to doing once you no longer have to take calls from people like us?
I am looking forward to spending a bit of time with my family. My children have become overnight a lot older. I have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old, so I'm looking forward to spending a bit of time with them. And
fighting the trolls online, which sounds like that's going to be your new mission.
Well, it's certainly part of what I want to do for ordinary young people and for women who find themselves attacked just because they're different from how people want them to be. I think that's wrong, and it's wrong. Look, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But what they're not entitled to do is to cause harm to people. And I think that that's really important to say.
First Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to speak to you.
Thank you so much, and enjoy a good old rest, I imagine. But do come back another time.
So the First Minister's first appearance, which will be her last as First Minister, but maybe not her last appearance ever.
So if she comes on again, she'll be the former First Minister. Coming on for the first time as the former First Minister. Coming on for the first time as the former First Minister, having been on tonight as the first time as the First Minister.
Night-night, everyone. Bye.
Newscast.
Newscast from the BBC.